When desperate single father Daniel brought his crying toddler to work, he never expected to be fired by the ruthless billionaire CEO. But when his 2-year-old daughter Emma ran to the cold-hearted Victoria Harrison, hugged her legs tight and whispered, "Mommy," everything changed forever. Before watching full story, comment below from where you watching. Also like and subscribe for more stories. The alarm clock screamed at 5:30 a.m., but Daniel Matthews was already awake. He had been staring at the ceiling for hours, his mind racing with worry. His 2-year-old daughter Emma slept peacefully beside him, her tiny hand clutching his shirt. The eviction notice on his nightstand seemed to mock him in the dim morning light. "Daddy has to go to work today, sweetheart," he whispered, gently stroking Emma's soft brown hair. "And unfortunately, you have to come with me." Daniel's world had crumbled 6 months ago when his wife Sarah died in a car accident. The medical bills, funeral costs, and his inability to work full-time while caring for Emma had drained their savings. Now he was 3 months behind on rent, and the daycare had refused to take Emma until he paid the overdue fees. He dressed Emma in her favorite pink dress, the one Sarah had bought for her first birthday. As he buttoned it up, memories flooded back. Sarah's laugh, her gentle hands braiding Emma's hair, her voice singing lullabies. The pain was still raw, cutting through him like a knife. "Mrs. Rodriguez next door can't watch you today," Daniel explained to Emma as she babbled happily. "She's sick and Daddy can't miss work again. Mr. Harrison already warned me." The irony wasn't lost on him. He worked as a janitor at Harrison Industries, the billion-dollar tech company owned by the ruthless Victoria Harrison. She was known for her cold heart and sharp tongue. Employees whispered stories about her firing people for the smallest mistakes. Daniel had managed to stay invisible for 2 years, but bringing a child to work would definitely get him noticed. Harrison Industries' glass tower stretched toward the sky like a monument to corporate power. Daniel's hands shook as he carried Emma through the employee entrance. She was unusually quiet, sensing his nervousness. "Listen, Emma," he whispered as they entered the elevator. "Daddy needs you to be very, very quiet today. We're going to play a hiding game, okay?" The 40th floor was Victoria Harrison's domain. Daniel had cleaned her office countless times, always when she wasn't there. Her assistant, Margaret, had strict instructions that no one should disturb Ms. Harrison unless it was an emergency. Daniel set up a small corner behind his cleaning cart where Emma could play quietly. He gave her coloring books and her favorite stuffed rabbit, Mr. Hoppy. For the first hour, everything went smoothly. Emma colored peacefully while Daniel worked, occasionally looking up to smile at her father. But then disaster struck. Daniel was cleaning the conference room when he heard Emma's cry. He rushed out to find her standing in the middle of the hallway, tears streaming down her face. Mr. Hoppy lay torn on the floor, his stuffing scattered across the expensive marble. "Hoppy broke, Daddy?" Emma sobbed. "Fix Hoppy." Daniel's heart broke as he knelt beside her. Mr. Hoppy had been Sarah's gift to Emma when she was born. It was all Emma had left of her mother. "I'll fix him, sweetheart," Daniel promised, though he knew it was impossible. The rabbit was beyond repair. That's when he heard the sharp click of heels on marble. Victoria Harrison stood at the end of the hallway like a storm cloud. Her silver hair was pulled back in a perfect bun, and her black suit was immaculate. At 45, she commanded respect and fear in equal measure. Her steel-gray eyes took in the scene with obvious displeasure. "What is the meaning of this?" Her voice cut through the air like ice. Daniel quickly stood, positioning himself between Victoria and Emma. "I'm sorry, Ms. Harrison. There was an emergency with childcare and I couldn't." "You brought a child to my company?" Victoria's voice rose with each word. "Do you have any idea how inappropriate this is? How unprofessional?" Emma, frightened by the angry voice, ran to Daniel and wrapped her arms around his legs. Her sobs echoed through the hallway. "Please, Miss Harrison," Daniel's voice cracked. "I know it's wrong, but I had no choice. My wife died and I'm behind on daycare payments. I couldn't miss another day of work." Victoria's expression didn't soften. "Your personal problems are not my concern." "Security." "No, please." Daniel dropped to his knees, desperation flooding his voice. "I need this job. My daughter and I will be homeless without it. I'm begging you." For a moment, Victoria hesitated. Something flickered in her eyes, but it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "Security will escort you out," she said coldly. "Clean out your locker. You're fired." As the security guards approached, Emma suddenly broke free from Daniel's arms. Instead of running away, she ran straight toward Victoria Harrison. Before anyone could react, Emma wrapped her tiny arms around Victoria's legs and looked up at her with tear-filled eyes. "Mommy?" Emma said clearly, her voice full of hope and innocence. The hallway fell silent. Even the security guard stopped walking. Victoria stood frozen, staring down at the little girl who had mistaken her for someone else. Emma's resemblance to Victoria was striking. The same silver-gray eyes, the same stubborn chin, the same way of tilting her head when curious. But it was more than that. Emma's trust, her innocent belief that this angry woman could somehow be her mother, cut through Victoria's carefully constructed armor. "I'm not your mommy," Victoria said quietly, her voice lacking its earlier harshness. Emma didn't let go. Instead, she pressed her face against Victoria's leg and said, "You smell like mommy. Like flowers." Victoria's hands trembled as she looked down at the child. Sarah had always worn jasmine perfume, the same fragrance Victoria wore every day. It was a scent that reminded her of her own mother, who had died when Victoria was just 5 years old. "Emma, come here," Daniel said gently, tears streaming down his face. "Leave the lady alone." But Emma didn't move. She looked up at Victoria with such pure trust that something inside the billionaire's chest cracked. "What's your name?" Victoria asked, her voice softer than anyone had ever heard it. "Emma," the little girl replied. "Emma Matthews. I'm 2. Victoria knelt down slowly, coming to Emma's eye level. "Hello, Emma. I'm Victoria." "Like victory?" Emma asked, mispronouncing the name in the way only a toddler could. For the first time in years, Victoria Harrison smiled. "Yes, like victory." "Cancel security," Victoria said without taking her eyes off Emma. "Mr. Matthews, please come to my office. Bring Emma." Daniel couldn't believe what he was hearing. 5 minutes ago he was being fired. Now, the most powerful woman in the city was inviting him to her office. Victoria's office was a shrine to success. Awards, certificates, and photos with world leaders covered the walls. But Emma wasn't interested in any of that. She was fascinated by a small snow globe on Victoria's desk. "That was my mother's," Victoria said, watching Emma examine the globe. "She died when I was very young." "My mommy died too," Emma said matter-of-factly. "She's in heaven with the angels." Victoria's breath caught. She looked at Daniel, who was still standing uncertainly by the door. "Sit down, Mr. Matthews," Victoria said. "Tell me about your wife." Daniel sat on the edge of the chair, Emma climbing onto his lap. She was everything good in the world. She was a teacher, loved children. She died in a car accident 6 months ago. A drunk driver. Victoria's face hardened. "I'm sorry for your loss. The medical bills, the funeral costs. We didn't have much to begin with. I've been trying to keep us afloat, but it's been impossible. Emma needs stability and I can't give it to her." Emma played with the snow globe, shaking it and watching the fake snow fall. "Pretty," she said, holding it up to Victoria. "Yes, it is pretty," Victoria agreed. She turned to Daniel. "What do you need?" "I just need to keep my job," Daniel said. "I'll find another way to arrange childcare. This won't happen again." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. Emma had gotten down from Daniel's lap and was now exploring the office, her earlier tears forgotten. She stopped at a photograph on Victoria's desk, a picture of a young woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. "Who's this?" Emma asked, pointing at the photo. Victoria's voice was barely a whisper. "That's my daughter Lily." Daniel looked at the photo, then at Victoria. "She's beautiful. How old is she?" "She would have been 25 this year," Victoria said. "She died when she was 3. Leukemia." The room went silent except for the tick of the expensive clock on the wall. Emma seemed to sense the sadness in Victoria's voice. She walked over and gently patted Victoria's hand. "It's okay," Emma said. "Mommy says when people die they become stars. Your little girl is a star now." Victoria's composure finally cracked. Tears she had held back for over 20 years began to flow. Emma, with the innocent wisdom of a child, climbed onto Victoria's lap and hugged her tightly. "Don't cry, Victory," Emma whispered. "Stars are happy." Victoria held Emma close, feeling something she hadn't felt in decades, maternal love. The little girl fit perfectly in her arms as if she belonged there. "Mr. Matthews, Daniel," Victoria said, her voice thick with emotion. "I need to tell you something. Something I've never told anyone." Daniel waited, sensing the importance of the moment. 22 years ago, I was a single mother working 3 jobs to support my daughter. Lily was sick and I couldn't afford the treatments she needed. I worked as a night cleaner, a waitress, and a babysitter. I barely slept. Victoria's voice grew stronger as she continued. "One day I had to bring Lily to work with me. I was cleaning offices downtown and my babysitter had canceled. Lily was so weak from the treatments, but she never complained. She just sat quietly and colored while I worked. Emma listened intently, as if understanding every word. The CEO of the company found us. He was furious. He fired me on the spot, called security, and had us escorted out. I begged him just like you begged me. I told him about Lily's condition, about how desperate I was. But he didn't care. Daniel felt a chill run down his spine. What happened? Lily died 3 weeks later. Without my income, I couldn't afford her treatments. I've carried that guilt, that anger for over 20 years. I built this company on the promise that I would never be powerless again. Victoria looked down at Emma, who had fallen asleep in her arms. I became everything I hated. I became him. But you're not him, Daniel said gently. You stopped. You chose differently. Victoria nodded slowly. Because of her. Because Emma reminded me who I used to be. Who I should have stayed. I have a proposition for you, Daniel, Victoria said, carefully adjusting Emma in her arms. I want you to work as my personal assistant. The pay is 10 times what you're making now. Healthcare, housing allowance, everything you need. Daniel stared at her in shock. I don't understand. I'm just a janitor. You're a father who would do anything for his child. That's the kind of dedication I need. And Emma? Victoria smiled down at the sleeping child. Emma can come to work with you every day. I'll set up a childcare facility here in the building. She'll have everything she needs. Why? Daniel asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Because I failed my daughter. I let bitterness and anger consume me. But maybe I can help you save yours. Victoria stood up, still holding Emma. There's something else. I've been looking for a way to honor Lily's memory. I want to start a foundation for single parents, childcare, financial assistance, healthcare. I want you to help me run it. Daniel felt tears flowing down his cheeks. Victoria, I don't know what to say. Say yes, Victoria replied. Say yes to giving Emma the life she deserves. Say yes to helping other families like yours. Emma stirred in Victoria's arms and opened her eyes. Victory? Is Daddy okay? Yes, sweetheart, Victoria said softly. Daddy's more than okay. We're going to take care of you both. 6 months later, Daniel barely recognized his life. He and Emma lived in a beautiful apartment provided by Harrison Industries. Emma attended the company's state-of-the-art childcare center, where she had made friends and was thriving. The Lily Harrison Foundation had already helped over 200 families, providing childcare, financial assistance, and healthcare support. Daniel had discovered he had a talent for organization and connecting with people in crisis. But the most remarkable change was in Victoria herself. The cold, distant CEO had been replaced by a woman who smiled frequently and always had time for Emma. She had become the grandmother Emma never had, and Emma had become the light that guided Victoria back to her humanity. Victory! Emma called out as she ran into Victoria's office. At 2.5, she was more confident and articulate than ever. Look what I made. Emma held up a crayon drawing of 3 figures holding hands, a man, a woman, and a little girl. Above them she had drawn a star. That's you, Daddy, and me, Emma explained. And that's Mommy and Lily watching us from heaven. Victoria knelt down and hugged Emma tightly. It's beautiful, sweetheart. Just like you. Daniel watched from the doorway, marveling at the transformation. The foundation approved 3 more applications today, he reported. The Johnson family, the Rodriguez family, and a single father from downtown. Excellent, Victoria said, standing up with Emma in her arms. I have news too. The board approved the expansion. We'll be opening centers in 5 more cities next year. Emma clapped her hands. More families. Many more families, Victoria confirmed. Thanks to you, little one. You taught me that sometimes the most important thing we can do is simply care about each other. 1 year after that fateful day in the hallway, Harrison Industries held its annual charity gala. The Lily Harrison Foundation had grown into a nationwide organization, helping thousands of families across the country. Victoria stood at the podium, looking out at the crowd of donors, employees, and families who had been helped by the foundation. Emma sat in the front row between Daniel and Margaret, Victoria's assistant who had become like a beloved aunt to the little girl. A year ago, I thought I knew what success looked like, Victoria began. I thought it was about power, about never showing weakness, about building walls to protect yourself from pain. She paused, looking directly at Emma, who waved enthusiastically. But a very wise little girl taught me that real success isn't about what you build for yourself. It's about what you build for others. It's about choosing love over fear, compassion over coldness, connection over isolation. The audience was silent, hanging on every word. The Lily Harrison Foundation exists because of Emma Matthews, a 2-year-old girl who saw past my anger to the broken heart underneath. She reminded me that we all need love, we all need family, and we all deserve a second chance. Victoria's voice grew stronger. This foundation is named after my daughter, but it exists because of Emma's courage. Because she wasn't afraid to hug a stranger and call her mommy. Because she believed in the possibility of love even when the world seemed cold. The crowd erupted in applause. Emma beamed with pride, not fully understanding the words but feeling the love in the room. After the gala, Victoria, Daniel, and Emma sat in Victoria's office, now decorated with Emma's artwork and family photos. "Victory," Emma said, climbing onto Victoria's lap. "Are you my grandma now?" Victoria's eyes filled with tears. "Would you like me to be?" "Yes," Emma said without hesitation. "Daddy, can Victory be my grandma?" Daniel smiled, his own eyes wet. "I think that would be perfect, sweetheart." Victoria held Emma close, feeling the warmth of family she thought she'd lost forever. "I love you, Emma. More than you'll ever know." "I love you too, Grandma Victory," Emma said, using the name she'd settled on all by herself. 5 years later, Emma Matthews Harrison, for Victoria had legally adopted her as her granddaughter, stood in the same hallway where she had first hugged Victoria. Now 7 years old, she was articulate, confident, and filled with the same compassion that had changed so many lives. "Daddy, tell me the story again," Emma said, holding Daniel's hand as they walked through the Harrison Industries building. "Which story?" Daniel asked, though he knew exactly which one she meant. "The story about how I found Grandma Victory," Emma said. "And how Mr. Hoppy helped us become a family." Daniel smiled. Mr. Hoppy had been carefully repaired and now sat on Emma's bedside table, a reminder that even broken things could be made whole again with love and patience. "Well," Daniel began, "it all started on a very scary morning when Daddy had to bring you to work." As they walked through the building, employees smiled and waved at Emma. She was beloved by everyone who worked there, a reminder of the power of innocence and love. The Lily Harrison Foundation had grown into an international organization, helping tens of thousands of families around the world. Victoria had stepped back from the daily operations of Harrison Industries to focus on the foundation, finding more fulfillment in helping others than she had ever found in corporate success. That evening, as Victoria tucked Emma into bed, the little girl looked up at her with serious eyes. "Grandma Victory, do you think Mommy and Lily are happy we found each other?" Victoria smiled, brushing a strand of hair from Emma's face. "I think they're very happy, sweetheart. I think they helped bring us together." "I think so too," Emma said sleepily. "I think love is like magic. It fixes everything." As Victoria turned off the light, she reflected on how much her life had changed. She had built an empire, but it had taken a 2-year-old girl to teach her what truly mattered. Love wasn't a weakness, it was the greatest strength of all. In the darkness, Emma's voice whispered one last time, "Grandma Victory?" "Yes, sweetheart. Thank you for being my family." Victoria's heart filled with a warmth she had never known before. "Thank you for saving me, Emma. Thank you for teaching me how to love again." And in that moment, surrounded by the love of her chosen family, Victoria Harrison finally understood what success really meant. It wasn't about what you could build or buy or control. It was about the hearts you touched, the lives you changed, and the love you gave and received. The little girl who had once cried for her broken rabbit had healed a broken woman's heart. And in doing so, she had created something beautiful, a family bound not by blood, but by choice, love, and the unbreakable bonds of the human heart. The story that began with desperation and ended with love would be told for generations, a reminder that sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change the world. And it all started with a hug and a single word, "Mommy."